My name is Anna and this is my own story. I had just come back to America after a week on the road. The kind of week that leaves grit under your nails and a bus map still rolling in your head. From New York City to Chicago and then home to Cleveland, work had sent me. The late train woke me after midnight. A taxi that smelled like coffee and rain cost me $32, and I asked the driver to take Birch Street slowly so I could look at the houses. When our small blue house came into view, 2 windows like kind eyes, a crooked rail on the steps, and a porch that remembers every boot, it felt like the first deep breath after a long day. As if she had been there for hours, my sister Leah was waiting on that porch. She held the post with both hands. Her knuckles were white and her face had that tight look I knew from when we were kids and hiding a broken vase. I waved and dragged my suitcase over the same crack in the walk that always tries to trip me. In their old friendly way, the wheels rattled. "Hey," I said, smiling just because I was home, because this was America and our little house and the night was kind. I thought she'd smile back. She did not. Her mouth trembled, and her eyes flicked to the door and back to me like a bird that cannot choose a branch. On the first porch plank I set my bag. In reply, the wood gave its hollow knock. The sound that says you belong here. From the doorway I could see into our living room. The couch that sags in the middle. The maple side table we haggled down to $60 at a garage sale. The framed map of America with pins in the cities we love. Like lemon soap and the last warm air of late summer, the house smelled. A moth circled the porch light and then rested on the white paint like a fingerprint. "What happened?" I asked. "Is it money? Is it the car? Is it Mom's old house papers again?" I had a list of small problems we could fix with time and common sense. Leah did not wait for another word. Clear and sharp, she blurted. "I married your rich fiancé. Now please don't cry." Between us, the sentence landed like a box that is heavier than it looks. I heard the light hum and the soft buzz of that tired moth. The street went quiet. The way a street goes quiet when it is listening. It felt like the world took one big step to the left and forgot to bring me with it. Without asking me first, my knees let go. I reached for the rail and caught nothing but air. The boards jumped up. The sky dropped down. Like water, the dark slipped into my ears. I did not scream. Soft as a paper letter falling from a table, I folded and fell. "Do you need a hand?" called a man's voice from across the street. It was Mr. Whitaker, who has lived opposite us so long that his mailbox paint fades and brightens between summers. "I've got her," Leah said, and she did. She is smaller than me, but shock gives people a kind of borrowed strength. She got me inside and onto the old couch. Under my neck she slid a pillow and over my legs she tucked the throw. My forehead found a cool cloth. In the kitchen the tap ran and closed. In the hall the clock counted seconds like coins on a wooden table. The house did the thing old houses do when they love you. It held me and it did not ask any questions. When I woke through the dark I rose the way a diver swims toward light. It was still night or maybe the edge of morning. The room had that thin blue color that knows the sun is near. In the doorway, Leah stood with a glass of water and eyes that had cried and cried again. I opened my mouth to ask the time or to ask if she was hurt or to ask if this was a dream. Instead I laughed. Wild and bright it came out. I laughed so hard that tears ran into my ears and tickled my neck. The sound startled her. Startled me too. "Anna," she said, scared and cross at once. "Don't. Please don't." She thought I had broken. I understood why, but the laugh did not come from shock. Softly I said her name. "Leah." Steady and older my voice sounded. To the chair she hurried and did not lean back as if a deeper seat might pull her under. On the maple table, she set the water, and a thin line slid from the rim and made a small round coin on the wood. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I married him. Grant, there wasn't time to tell you. We went to the courthouse. He paid $120 for the license. That plain white dress you liked, I wore because it felt simple and good. Quickly we did it. I was afraid that if we waited, you would come home and end it, and it would hurt you more." With the heel of her hand like a child, she wiped her eyes. "Please don't cry, Grant." In the room, his name lay like a heavy coat thrown over a chair. I looked at the coat on the hook by the door. The one he bragged cost £400. The one that still held the clean borrowed smell of a store that was not ours. He had a way of holding a wine list like it was a plan. He had a way of saying the names of cities, New York City, Chicago, Cleveland, as if each name alone could build a ladder to the life he wanted. As if money were a friend who might shake his hand and call him brother, he talked about money. If only he wore the right shoes. A bill could seem like a bouquet from him. Price tag could sound like a promise. Those tricks I knew. The hard way, number by number, I had learned them. "Listen to me," I said. And I met her eyes and kept them. I breathed in and felt the house around us. Old wood steady under new paint. Simple things in their places. The couch, the clock, the lemon soap. Each one a small truth you can touch. "You asked me not to cry," I said. "I am not going to cry." Slow but sure, I stood in the room tilted and then settled like a small boat that finds its balance. With 2 fingers I pulled the curtain back. Mr. Whitaker's porch light had gone dark. The street was empty. A little thinner was the blue in the window. Morning was coming, even if it did not know it yet. I let the curtain fall and turned back to my sister. "I'm not broken," I said. "I'm free." The words surprised her. They surprised me too, but they were true in the way the rail is crooked and the step is chipped and the paint is blue. I wasn't happy that a promise had been bent out of shape. I wasn't happy that a wedding had been rushed like a sale on a street corner. I was happy because I knew something she did not know yet. Something real and countable, measured in dollars and in facts and in the weight of a ring I had placed in a drawer before I left for Chicago. There I stood in our small American house with the map of America on the wall, and the smell of soap in the air. And I laughed again, not from pain, but from joy because I knew something Leah did not know yet. On the couch I sat up and told Leah we needed to talk. Not fast, not loud, just steady. The house was quiet, but strong around us like a hand at our backs. "I'm not going to cry," I said. "I need to tell you what I learned before my trip." To her face, she pressed the damp cloth and nodded. On the edge of the chair, she looked small as if one wrong word could push her off. In the hall the clock ticked like a calm heart. I thought of the pins on our map of America, of the porch boards that know our steps. I thought of truth, the kind you can count. Then I began. Months ago, the first crack had shown up when Grant told me about a condo near the lake in Cleveland, and a string of deals in New York City that would set us up for life. On those nights he wore a sharp navy suit, and he made sure to hang it where everyone could see. One evening when I lifted the jacket to make room in the closet, a tag slipped out of the inner pocket, a rental slip, $1,120 a day, due back Monday by noon. The 700-pound watch on his wrist was a family piece, he said, but the crown stuck and the brand name was spelled wrong on the clasp. The car he posed with in front of the house had a dealer plate and a thin paper tag tucked in the back window. Later, in his glove box, I found the lease statement. $1,200 a month for something that never truly belonged to him. Easy to him, money talk came like a song he had practiced. Like a stage prop, he would hold a menu and order the most expensive thing with a brave little nod. Then when the server walked away, he would lean close and whisper that a payment was stuck and would I mind sending him $85 just this once because his account would clear at midnight. Once at a fancy steakhouse on Euclid Avenue, with a flourish he handed over his card. And while the server was gone, he asked me to spot him a small bridge. His words until a bonus landed. The bonus never did. When we got home in his coat pocket for the suit rental, I found a folded bill. 3 days at $120, a total $360, plus a late fee that made the numbers feel like a bruise. I told myself there was nothing wrong with wanting nice things. I told myself he was just trying, but wanting and pretending are not the same. A Tuesday on West 14th was the night I truly knew. He said he had to meet a buyer. I had the afternoon off and a slow, heavy feeling in my chest that would not leave. I took a walk and drifted toward the corner where the old garage sits, the one with the hand-painted sign and the smell of oil that lives in the air. And there he was in a gray shirt with his name stitched above the pocket. Grant. He was not talking with a buyer. He was bent over a small car, his hands black with grease, his face fixed in a worried line as he tried to free a stubborn bolt. A woman named Rosa, the manager, saw me watching and waved me into the shade. She offered me water. She said he was part-time, that he was good with carburetors but late with lunch money. And no, he did not own the place. Kindly she said it, like she was sorry to be the one holding the light. I am not ashamed to say I walked home slowly and quietly. There is nothing wrong with honest work. A mechanic keeps America moving, But lies break the axles of trust. That night when he bragged that he had $50,000 saved, I asked him to teach me his secret. He opened a budgeting app to show me a sample plan, and for a breathlong second, the true balance flashed. $312. He covered the screen and laughed, saying the display was lagging. Later, at the top of his drawer, I found letters about overdrafts and a note he had written to himself. Look rich. Be rich. As if the first could ever become the second by force of will. I did not confront him that night. For my trip to Chicago and then to New York City and back to Cleveland, I packed. In the maple table drawer beside the spare keys, I put the ring. On the back of an old receipt, I wrote a short note to myself. Truth is better than shine. I needed space to think in straight lines, not the loops his stories made. On the train, I watched the fields and the towns pass and felt my chest grow light. Each mile felt like a clean bill paid in full. By the time I crossed into New York City, I knew I would end the engagement. All that was left was to say it. So when I came home and heard Leia's words on the porch, I married your rich fiancé, my body fell before my mind could speak. And when I woke, I laughed, not from shock, but from the sudden lift of a weight I had already laid down. As I spoke, Leia's face went through clouds. Doubt, hope, fear, shame. She searched for a ledge. He told me about the condo, she said, almost to herself. He said the mortgage was a breeze. He said his watch was insured for £700. He said his car would be ours next year. Over the edge of the damp cloth, she rubbed her thumb like it could erase the numbers. I told her about the garage on West 14th. I told her about the $120 suits and the $1,200 lease and the $85 whispers and the $312 truth. I told her there is no sin in being poor and no sin in fixing cars. The sin is in turning a person into a ladder and climbing them to reach a dream that is not real. She looked around our living room like it had changed shape, but it hadn't. The couch still sagged in the middle. The map of America still held our pins. The porch still waited for morning. He said he loved me, she whispered. He said he loved you before that. I nodded. He loves the look of money, I said. He loves rooms where people believe. But love without truth is a costume. It will tear when you breathe. She shut her eyes and took a long square breath and opened them again. Into her face, something steady moved like a light that had been behind a door all along. We sat there while the blue window turned gray and then pearl. In small sounds, the city woke. A truck on the far block, a bird on the gutter, a neighbor's kettle beginning to whisper. What do we do? She asked. I reached for her hand. First, we don't blame ourselves for someone else's show, I said. Then we count what is real. We have this house. We have our work. We have each other. We have the truth. She nodded and a tear slid down, but it was clean. Not the hot kind. I brought her the glass and she drank. I laughed. I said. Because I was free. In the room, the words settled like coins in a jar. Clear, simple, and ours. Outside, the light climbed our porch rail and inch by inch showed everything as it was. The mask had come off. When I finished telling Leia everything, the garage on West 14th, the rented suits, the £700 watch with a misspelled clasp, it was as if all the air left the room. Her lips parted, then closed again. She tried to stand and didn't quite make it. The way mine had on the porch, her knees buckled, and I caught only her sleeve before she sank onto the rug and tipped sideways against the couch. For a breath, the house hummed in my ears, and I thought the lights had dimmed. To the pillow, I lifted her head and called her name until her eyes fluttered open. When she focused on me, she made a small sound that I will never forget. A sound like a string pulled too tight. Then into my shoulder she cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady tears that wet my collarbone while I held on and felt the truth settle around us like cold wind. In the days that followed, the wind kept blowing. It came through the mail slot first, hard and unsentimental. A crisp envelope with a barcode and his name brought a suit rental statement. 3 days at $120, a late fee, total $360. Past due. Another bill arrived with a balance of $7,480 from a credit card. He had assured Leia he kept only for points. With red letters across the top, the car dealer sent a notice. The monthly lease at $1,200 was 2 payments behind. On the maple table, I lined the envelopes, and we read them like road signs to a place we did not want to go. At the numbers, Leah stared until they stopped being symbols and turned back into weight. It was not the money alone. It was the difference between the shine he sold and the brass we could afford. It was the proof that every boast had been a borrowed coat that would have to be returned. We did the ordinary brave things people do when a life splits along a seam. To ask what a quick marriage meant when it came apart even quicker, Leah called the courthouse. I found the number for a lawyer in downtown Cleveland, whose office had a view of the river, and a waiting room plant that tried its best to look alive. Her name was Margaret Owens. Plain shoes and a plain gray dress she wore, and she didn't mistake plain for weak. Without interrupting, she listened, then wrote down dates and totals and asked simple questions in an even voice. The consultation fee was $150, and as I counted out the bills at her desk, I felt oddly grateful to be paying for something that was real. To Leah, Miss Owens slid a thin packet across and pointed to the lines that mattered. "You will be fine," she said. "It will not feel fine at first, but you will be." While we waited for papers to be stamped and filed, the house changed color the way a lake does when a cloud passes. It had always been a little blue place on a little American street. But now the light seemed truer, like we had rubbed a film off the glass. From the hallway dish, we took the watch with a bad clasp and put it in a drawer. On the hooks, we hung our coats and left space where his used to sit and pin. On a yellow pad, I wrote out a list. Cancel the florist for that celebration dinner he had promised yet never booked. Return a bottle of wine that had been bought on hopes. Call a bank to close the account he'd opened with Leah's name, and a story about investment. Ordinary tasks, but each item checked off felt like dollars saved and breaths gained. Only once did Grant come by, which was once too many. He didn't knock like a man who belongs. He tapped like a salesman. On the porch, I met him because that was where I had fallen and it felt right to stand straight there. Without the navy suit, he looked smaller, like a sentence without the part that tries too hard. "Anna," he said first, and then "Leah," when she appeared behind me. He had rehearsed an apology and said it on the step between us. He spoke about wanting more than the world had offered him, about learning to signal success, about believing that if he could just look the part, the dollars would follow and love would follow the dollars. He said he loved me. Then he said he loved Leah. And in the space between those declarations, he asked if we could lend him $300 to square a thing so he could start clean. It was the truest sentence he spoke. Like a throne, money sat in the middle of all the others. I told him no. Gently I said it, and I said it once. I told him I didn't refuse because he was poor. America is full of good people who count their dollars and make them stretch. And there is no shame in hands that smell like oil or days that end with tired feet. I refused because he had stacked lies like boards and expected us to live in the house he made. I refused because he had turned love into a ladder and people into rungs. I refused because every answer he offered us had a price tag tied to the end of it. He started to argue that a future together could still be built, that we could be partners, that he had plans, but the plans were the same fog they had always been. Beside me, Leah stepped up and said in a voice I barely recognized as hers, "We are done." He looked at the porch rail where my palm had slipped, at the door that would not open to him again, and he left. By then, we had stopped trying to understand the performances and focused on the ledger of facts. In the third week, Ms. Owens filed the papers. With a hand that did not shake, Leah signed her name. The filing fee was $280 and I paid it without flinching. We made calls to cut the shared lines and to refuse responsibility for debts that were not ours. To the rental shop on Superior Avenue we returned the suit, and the clerk, a man with silver hair and kind eyes, thanked us for bringing it back clean. He had seen this story before. His nod said as much. On the way home for $9 we bought 2 slices of pie from a diner that has been honest since the day it opened. With our coats still on, we ate them at the counter, forks clicking on thick white plates. The first true hunger I had felt in weeks, I felt. At home, over Cleveland on our map of America, I tacked a fresh pin. Not for a trip, but for a place survived. What truth costs, I wrote on a small card and slid the card behind the frame. The cost, as I counted it, was measured in dollars. $360, $7,480, $1,200, $150, $280. And in something harder to quantify, hours lost to worry, breaths taken shallow. A porch you can no longer step onto without remembering the drop. But the returns were real too. Honest again, the house felt. On our own feet our names stood. When it came back, Leia's laugh had no wobble in it. Sometimes late at the maple table we would sit and add small columns, groceries, utilities, a little saved for winter, and we would feel rich in the way that matters, light, steady, solvent in spirit. When the decree came by mail, 2 stapled pages in a plain envelope, Leia read it once and set it down. She did not cry. At the sink, she stood and washed 2 glasses and dried them with a towel that hung on the oven door. "We're free," she said, and then she smiled at me. The quiet kind of smile that knows a bill paid is a victory. I folded the papers and placed them with the receipts we had kept, not as trophies, but as proof that we passed through and came out the far side with our own names intact. The wind eased. On the porch the house warmed. For a hand that would hold tight and tell the truth, the crooked rail waited. Fresh I started because forward was the only clean direction. To Boston, still in America. I took a bus and found a tiny brown house with a sloped roof and a red door that needed paint. The price was $210,000, too large to feel safe and just right to feel honest. The porch board sagged and the gutters leaned, but the place looked me in the eye. On a scrap of a receipt I made a list. Porch repair $600. Paint $35. A second-hand table $120. 2 chairs $90. A kettle $18. To the fridge I taped it and crossed off each line with a steady pen. Through a bell above a door work found me. The bookshop on Charles Street needed morning help. And I needed the quiet trust of shelves. Travel guides, cookbooks, and well-loved paperbacks I stocked. And from every paycheck I saved $50 because saving felt like breathing. On a wet Tuesday, that is where I met Adam Brooks. From his coat, he shook rain, asked for a slim poetry book, and smiled when I found a used copy with £4 penciled in the corner. $6 he paid and left a kind note with his name. A public school teacher, he was a man who wore time, not status, on his wrist. On small weather days Adam came back. Good work with a clear finish he liked. So on Saturdays he helped me sand the porch rail while I painted the door the brightest red the hardware store sold for $35. Grilled cheese we ate and split a $9 pie from the corner bakery. He told me he had $4,300 saved toward a future down payment, and with his numbers did not wobble. Like people who build, not like people who pose, we dated. Walks by the river. A lamp from a flea market for $7. An envelope in the drawer marked groceries. At City Hall for $120 on a sunny Friday, we got married. On the morning train Leia came and held my hand. No orchestra, no show, just vows spoken plain and a new key on my ring. At home, a new map we pinned and marked the American places that held us. One day we said we might add a modest pin for Europe, but our life is here. This block, this porch, this red door. At night, I lock it and think of the old porch in Cleveland and the cost of shine. A story money can dress, but a house it cannot warm. Truth can. Dollar by dollar, heart by heart, I can count it.